camping a couple weekends ago with Jeff Rohn, and when I was in town for the Summerfest in Oak Ridge, and we found a place up in the mountains, and I spent the first day there. I spent about 4 hours driving around trying to find a place to camp, and so I explored a lot. I found this spot, and I was like, "This is perfect." I kind of set up some stuff to claim it, and then I drove back in. We talked to him. We went back that night, camped there that night, and so the second night we camped there. Wayne from Arizona 4, that group out of Arizona, was camping with us, and he was telling us about what they call zapping down there in one of their areas. And he was like, "You guys, know what zapping is?" And I was like, "I've heard of it, but where I heard about it before was in Georgia, and it was people used to talk about it as like there was one guy, this guy named Lee that I knew that he said he would get zapped when he was one of those people that would push it, like go into their areas and like test the limits of what he could do. He would try to like hide and do all the stuff that I wouldn't do at all, but he would try it anyways. He would say when he would surprise them or they were getting upset with him, he would get zapped, and it would like basically like freeze them, right? And so when Wayne was telling us, yeah, and so I was like, he was like, "Yeah, we've been, we get zapped sometimes," and I was like, "I don't know what that." And like, "What do you mean? Does that mean like, you guys get frozen or, whatever?" And he was like, "No, it's just like a little tingly, like they'll kind of just give you like a tingly sensation down like your back or your arm or something." And I was like, oh, I think I've experienced that before. And that night, I, this is just in reference to you saying, "Oh, I've never had that before." That night, I was like asleep, and I got the sensation that someone was in camp. I kept hearing like noises, like somebody was messing with stuff in camp. So I was like, "Someone's back in camp tonight." And then I was like laying there with my eyes closed, and I felt this electrical pulse going through my left foot, like right near my ankle. And I was like, and I remember thinking like, that feels interesting. I've never felt that before. And I opened my eyes and looked at my foot. And when I looked at my foot, there was a full moon behind me, and it was like shining on the trees in the direction I was looking. And so the light that was shining on the trees, I saw a shadow standing next to my foot move. It just moved to the left. And I was like, "Oh, I just got zapped."
Cool.
Yeah.
They love to eavesdrop, don't they?
They do. They do. They were there listening, and I know they were.
Yeah. So I don't really know you, Ginger. Would you like to talk about yourself at all?
Yeah, I really only talk about my encounters these days on my own private page. So, unless somebody like Sam tells on me, nobody knows. But, I started having encounters when I was a kid, but I actually thought that it was walking bear friends because I was having them at night, and I didn't know that there was such a thing as a Bigfoot. And I was hearing the boom, boom, the loud, heavy footsteps walking up on both sides at me at night, and I thought I had walking bear friends. I could only see the silhouettes of them and stuff. And I remember telling a friend, and I took her out there, and sure enough, they walked up on both sides of us, and it scared her. She wanted to leave, but so I never knew that the Bigfoot were real because I didn't know that I was dealing with the Bigfoot. We had another encounter at my house too when I was young, but then my husband was watching Bigfoot shows when they first came out on TV, and I still didn't really believe. And then I started wondering if they were real. And then all of a sudden one night around 2:30 in the morning, this really, really loud howling started happening in our backyard. I mean, it sounded like it was a megaphone. It was that loud. And then one down the street started answering it back. It sounded like it was down the street. I don't know that for sure. But and it was just going on and on. Mine in my yard would answer it back, and the one down the street would answer it back. And it was super loud. It was so loud. I wondered why all the house lights weren't coming on in the subdivision. But it was around, 2:30 in the morning. So I think people just thought they were dreaming about it. And I stayed up all night to tell my husband because he believed in Bigfoot. And I couldn't think of anything what it could be except for the Bigfoot. In fact, I stayed up all night looking at recordings of every animal I could think of, and nothing came close to that sound. And so I told him in the morning, and he said he remembered like dreaming about it, hearing it but he just thought he was dreaming. And so I guess that's what was going on with the whole neighborhood. Because, I mean, it was loud enough. It should have woke up the entire subdivision. And after that, they just kept coming back. And, just all kinds of things happened. I think we pretty much went through everything. I don't want to say that because then they'll do something to me I've never had before, probably. But, I've been through enough with them to know that. And, I had a cloaked one walk out in front of me. I could see my husband through it in the house. And then my first sighting in my yard, I walked out with some peanuts just to give them some peanuts. It was dark, and two big trails had formed in our yard after the night of the howling. After the night of the howling, they just moved in and started yanking the trees out of our yard, and we hear them come crashing down night after night. And then these two big trails formed, and I walked out one night with some peanuts to give them, and I was just kind of looking at the ground, and I look up, and all of a sudden there's two Bigfoot standing right in front of me in physical form. Wow. And they were just in arm's reach, just like right there, and it was two of them, and one was about my height, which would be a juvenile because I'm real short, and I'm 5'3", barely, and it was my height, and then there was one standing behind it, and a little to the side, like it was being protected. It was directly behind it, and it was about a head taller, so that'd probably be like 6'3", and they both had green eye shine. And that really messed me up because my husband had been reading Bigfoot books and watching Bigfoot shows, and we weren't coming or hearing about green eye shine anywhere. So, I started wondering, am I really dealing with Bigfoot? I mean, what am I dealing with?
Oh, right.
And but then they started doing other things that were Bigfootish, like the rock throwing and all that stuff. And so, I figured, okay, yeah, it is. And then finally, my husband came across a book where somebody did see the green eye shine. And I was like, okay. And then I heard of somebody else that saw it after that. And but because the eye shine that I saw that night, they both had the same color, and it was bright fluorescent green. And even though the eyes are almond shaped, the eye shine was perfectly round. And now I didn't have a flashlight or anything on me, so it wasn't a reflection from light. Like if you shine a flashlight on an animal's eyes and they'll reflect. I didn't have any lights. They put out their own light, and they can change the color of it. I've seen them change the color in front of me too. I've seen them change it from blue to green, stuff like that. So that was my first sighting. The first night started off with the howling, and then I think the next stuff that started happening was the trees being yanked out and come crashing down, and two big trails formed. And then one started talking to me in the evenings. I'd come sit on my porch, and I'd hear one go, ooh, 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 like that. Sounded kind of like a monkey, to tell you the truth, or an ape. And then and it would just do that like almost every night. I'd come sit on my porch, and I'd hear ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah. And I named it Rocky because it was always sitting by a pile of rocks. And so they started off more with the vocals with me, and it was a couple months before I had the physical sighting, and they were doing this rock throwing, and I really loved the rock throwing, and it's got such a bad name, and I don't understand why, because they never hit you with rock,
Right.
So why do people mind the rock throwing? So I thought it was fun. I got on the ground one time and started rolling around throwing rocks back at them. I thought it was hilarious, and so I just think people take things wrong sometimes, but
Yeah.
So anyways, a lot happened, and I got really close to the Biggies, and my husband had a sighting in the yard too, and Sam and I and my husband all shared a sighting and shared other encounters too, and so it's been a lot of fun.
Man, so it's been how many years since this started happening? A while.
How many years, honey? How many years have since the Bigfoot came to our yard? 2014.
Oh, okay. So not that long. I mean, you had that experience when you were a kid.
Right, but I didn't know I was dealing with the Bigfoot, so I often don't even share that.
Right. Right. But you've had experience with all sorts of paranormal stuff though, right? Like all throughout your life. Yeah.
They were the Bigfoot, sorry, I'm losing my voice a little tonight, but the Bigfoot were attracting other beings too, which is common. And
Oh, okay.
we had a bunch of little lights in our yard. Tons of them, and they were little green lights. And I didn't know anything at first about the Bigfoot, nothing. And so I thought it was a bunch of juvenile eye shine. And then one night, Paul and his dad and I were all sitting on my porch, and we saw all the little green lights. And I just, for some reason, thought to say something to him, and I blurted out the word "hi." And then several of them flew straight up to the porch, and they started doing spiral dances without their lights turning off. And then they
Whoa.
flew back into the woods. And then so I said, "Hi," again, because it worked the first time. So
Right.
and they came flying back. And this time they did zigzags without the lights turning off. And then they went back in the woods again. And I kept going to Paul and his dad, "Don't you guys think that's strange? Don't you guys think that's strange?" And they were just quiet, like they were mesmerized by the lights, because it was strange. I mean, fireflies don't come up and do designs in front of you. And
Yeah.
And so that's how I learned about fairies. So I have a lot of fairy encounters now too. Now I go out looking for fairies and get the fairies, just like the Biggies.
Wow. Okay. Let me see. I don't know, Sam. What do you think about all this? Is this a little too out there for you, or what?
For me?
No.
No, it's funny because Ginger and I.
I'm just trying to get a rise out of him. That's all.
Yeah.
Sam and I shared so many encounters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we kind of started going. Well, I think I went to one camp out before you guys, and
You
then
did.
you guys came to the next one. Yeah. So we kind of started with the camp outs around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was fun. And then we so at the place we used to do the camp outs, there's some like rangers and some people that work there, and they liked it when we would have our camp outs because they knew the Bigfoot were there, and they liked being able to talk to us about it. And so they would come by sometimes and just kind of chat with us. And then eventually it got to the point where like
They still know.
And they shared like the code to the gate to get into the park. And so at nights they were like, yeah, just come back whenever.
They
So
let us come in free all the time at night.
yeah. So we would
Wow.
go back, like
That's cool.
Ginger and her husband and I would go back. I don't know.
Almost every
I'd say-
weekend sometimes.
Yeah, like we would just go back sometimes just for like a night walk, spend like an hour or two back there.
Yeah, we just did night walks all the time back in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we remember that one night we saw those red lights in the air.
Yeah. So there was another time. I think about this time often. There was a time we went down the trail, and then we came back, and on the way back, we were walking, and we got to where our cars were parked, and there was like a whole group of we thought they were little ones, but there was like, I want to say like 3 or 4 sets of glowing eyes by our cars, and they were like moving around all crazy, like they were like getting down on the ground, and then they would jump up, and then they would move, and you'd see like their eyes, and they were like getting behind each other and doing like, it was pretty wild. I think about that one a lot because I want to say that might have been the last time I was there, because I think
really?
that
I think it was. I was just about to say that. I believe it was the very last night when you told us you were leaving. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember we walked over there towards that area, and then we went and sat at a picnic table, and we were wondering if they were going to come up to us then.
But you remember also the night where we heard the big pop that made me jump out of my skin, and I saw a flash of light, and then we went up the hill more, and I was seeing some juvenile eye shine behind a bush, and you and Paul started looking to the right, and we're seeing all these red lights in the sky or in the air.
Yep.
Right in front of you.
Yeah, because I saw some red eyes up there too. And I thought that might have been a juvenile, because that was the same time we saw the green and the blue eyes. And I think that was the night we walked over to the pavilion after that.
Yeah,
we sat
we
there.
said pavilion, right?
Yeah, and they threw rocks on the roof while we were sitting in the pavilion.
Yes. I think we were trying to telepathically communicate with them.
Yeah.
So, but we our best eye shine encounter, Paul and Sam and I all shared together. It was the biggest eye shine we've ever seen. It was huge, and it was doing amazing things with its eye shine. It was pulling it in and flaring it out, and pulling it in like a strobe light and flaring it out. And it was
I've seen that before.
It was and then it was had a light connecting to the other eye, and the other eye was almond shaped, but it was still lit up all white, pure, and then and there was a white ring around it, and it was connecting to the white line going across the bridge of the nose to the big one that was flaring out.
Yeah.
So they don't always make them the same size all the time at the same time. Because this one wasn't Sam. And it was only doing that to one eye. And in fact, that we were able to see part of its face because when it turns and looked at Paul and Keith, that other eye wasn't flared out. So we were able to see its face. So it was really doing unique stuff with its eyes. And it kind of looked like it was wearing spectacles because of the light that was going across the bridge of its nose. But, but spectacles made of light, you know? And because even the big one that was flaring in and out had a white ring around it also. And I've never seen eye shine like that before since ever.
Right.
And it was just huge. And it was like a strobe light. If you had problems with strobe lights, it probably would have got you because it was going poof, poof, poof. And when it's cool because we all three have each other as witnesses for that encounter.
Right.
You know, so it's a good one because, you know, it's one thing to, and even your husband, people say, oh, it's your husband, so he's just agreeing with you. But, you know, Sam and Paul and I are all three a witness to that encounter. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of times, so many of these experiences you can kind of, and I don't know why your brain does it because, I mean, for me, first off, I've had physical encounters in broad daylight where I've seen, you know, large humanoid creatures walking across a road. And I assume, you know, it's 90 degrees outside, but I assume it's some gigantic man in a snowmobile suit with like a ski cap on. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why is that guy walking around like that? Like your brain does all these mental gymnastics to try to make sense of these experiences. And like,
speaking of which, the encounter I just told you about that Paul and Sam and I all three shared. Now, Paul didn't come in towards the end of it, but nevertheless, when Paul walked up, Sam and I had already been there. The Bigfoot was still facing us with its real big shine. And all of a sudden it turned around and started to leave. And Sam was sad it was leaving. Sam said, oh no, it's leaving or something like that. So, and you know, Sam's my buddy. So I whispered, oh, please don't leave. And I just kind of muttered it under my breath. I'm surprised Sam even heard it, but he did.
Yeah. She said it really quiet, which was why this was so crazy.
I barely whispered. It was like, oh, please don't leave. And and it was a distance and it heard it and it whipped around real quick and started shooting out its eye shine at us again. Now on the way home, Paul said, are you sure that wasn't the full moon?
Yeah.
Right.
Why do we do that? I
said,
don't
Paul,
understand why.
when does the full moon turn around and come back? And he goes, oh, okay, because I thought that was the best explanation to get his mind back into that.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's just happens to so many people, and he said he still struggles with it with his mind trying to justify it. And I've noticed that lots of times the justification is crazier than just saying it's a Bigfoot.
Yeah, right. I
agree.
I talk about my most recent sighting that happened in the Blue Mountains in 2023. I saw one that was so big. My brain, I literally heard it short circuiting because it couldn't. It's just, it is a thing where it's like, you know, because our eyes filter through our brain, right? We see something, it goes straight through our brain and our brain has to make sense of it, you know, like immediately. And so the one that I saw was just so big and it moved so fast. I just couldn't comprehend it, right? And so the reason that it came up with this, you know, because it tries to come up with whatever makes sense with the input that it's given, right? Your brain's like, okay, this, and this. What's probably the most, you know, realistic thing it is, and then it puts this thing out. What I saw was this enormous black figure. So it was standing under some trees, and the tree limbs, the lowest limbs on this tree are about 10 foot tall, right? And so its shoulders, I couldn't see above its shoulders because its shoulders were at the level of the lowest branch, right? And so its head was probably 2 foot taller than that. So this thing was 12 foot tall, right? But all I saw was the shoulders and the arms going down beside it, and its hands were down below its knees, like mid shin. And so the shape of it, since I didn't see the head and the arms went down almost to the ground, it looked like just a black like rectangle, right? And then it turned when it like sensed that I saw it, it turned sideways and it just jetted into the woods. And all I saw was like a black blur. It was so fast. And so I heard my brain say, big black rectangle. And I was like,
Now, that doesn't sound crazy.
yeah, I was like, of course, right? Because that's something you see in the woods all the time. But yeah, so yeah, our brains, they try to rationalize this stuff, and sometimes it doesn't. And I
Well,
think that
right.
you have to like condition your brain in a way to like accept the fact that you know of what you're seeing.
My
Right.
brain accepts it easily now, but like I was saying, sometimes the justification sounds crazier. I used to post in a lot of Bigfoot groups. I just stopped because the
Yeah,
drama. And
right,
but I would notice people's justifying sounded crazier than just saying it's a Bigfoot.
right,
But
Right.
you notice when I was a kid, I justified it as walking bear friends. Okay, how many
right,
people have bears that walk up to them on the hind legs and are their friends and just hang out?
right,
See what I
right.
mean?
Hmm.
The
Right.
justification was crazier than just saying it was Bigfoot. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was Bigfoot back then, but later in life when I had the memory come to me and I had Bigfoot encounters, I was like, oh,
Right. Yeah. And then sometimes it's this has happened to me a couple times too. When you do have a sighting, it like doesn't it's the same thing. Like your brain doesn't register it as a sighting right away, right? And so there's like this lapse where
yeah,
like this has happened to me 3 times where I've seen one while I'm either talking to somebody or with somebody, and I don't and it like doesn't hit me right
register.
away. Where normally you would think that if you're talking to someone and you see one, you're gonna be like, oh, I just saw one. But it's like you see it and you're like, you can hear your brain almost being like, wait, did I just see
Yeah.
that? You know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they move really fast and it's like,
Oh yeah, they're just a blur sometimes.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
like, and so the one I saw in North Carolina, I climbed up to the top of the waterfall. Kristen was down at the bottom of the waterfall. I stood up and looked across the creek, and there was one looking at me. It was standing in like mountain laurel bushes, and I could see its face looking at me. And I saw it, and we looked at each other, made eye contact, and I blinked, and he was gone.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I remember standing there like,
Did I just really see something?
yeah, like what the
Yeah.
hell was that? And then Kristen's like, you okay? And I was just like, yeah, I'm fine. I didn't say like, oh, there's a Bigfoot up here. You know what I mean? It was just like, anyways. So yeah, your brains, our brains are just like, I think they struggle with this stuff just as much as we do sometimes.
The lake I was telling you about, the new lake out there at the back of the first time Paul and I saw it in the daytime, he said, look at that guy over there fishing. Because remember, I told you there's only a little strip of land between it and the river. He
Yeah.
thought he saw a guy fishing on the river in the tall grass.
Okay.
And I looked out there, I didn't see anyone. And so Paul walked all the way up there and looked down the shore, didn't see anyone. And I said, Paul, are you sure you didn't see a Bigfoot?
Yeah.
And,
Right.
but yeah, yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
around there too, right? Because it's
Right. Well, that's a place that's well known for it. Right. And
yeah,
there just wasn't any people around. There wasn't
right.
anybody.
Yeah, and there's people there sometimes, but there's generally not a lot.
There wasn't anybody back in there because it's a new area and you can't park back in there yet.
Okay. Right.
So right, there was nobody at the lake and or on the river around there. So I was just like, Paul, you sure you didn't see a Bigfoot? Because they can look like a person when you
Right.
only see parts of them and stuff.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. Ashley Stinnett, she's told me of a few instances that she's
Mhm.
experienced where it was kind of a shape-shifting experience where the person looked kind of like a person, but there was something off, something sketchy
Yeah.
and weird about it. And then
Right.
afterwards, it's like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had much telepathic communication with them, Ginger?
Oh yeah, I do it all the time with them. But it started when they were in our yard. I would sit out alone, and we have a part that's just wooded that we left wooded in our yard. So I would sit out there alone with them at night, and it makes you feel a lot safer to do that when your house is just right there. And
Right.
so I would sit on the trail at night, and I would just tell them all about my day, and I would get instant thoughts back, and it would be a solution for whatever the problem was. And it would be something I would have never thought of. So I knew that it wasn't coming from me because it was thinking outside of the box. You know what I mean? It was something I would have never thought of. So it made me figure out they were listening and they were communicating with me telepathically. and giving me thoughts back. And so I started doing that every night, just going out there. I would come outside, flip on the light. Hey, honey, are you out there? In fact, that's how I saw a cloaked one, because I never went out there with a flashlight or a phone, because the biggies in my yard, it showed me they didn't care for that stuff. And I cared about my encounters more. So I wanted to really get to know them. So I always left the phone and a flashlight in the house. But of course, I was close to my house, so I was safe to do that. But
Right.
so I don't want anybody to be dangerous out there, so I'm careful of that. But so I was out there one night and I was talking to him telepathically about my day. And Paul comes out on the porch, and the porch is on the second floor, and he flips on the deck light. And I was sitting on a trail back in the woods, and he said, honey, are you out there? And I looked up to the second floor and looked at him. And right when I did that, a Bigfoot came walking out right in front of me on the trail, and I could see through the Bigfoot. I could see my husband and the house and everything through the Bigfoot. It was see-through. So, but I could see its entire body, though. There wasn't anything blocking my view of its body. I could see from its foot to its head to the end of its fingers, but it was all see-through. And it had these real long fingers. And
I've never heard that before.
And it walked over to, they like that in Georgia. In fact, there's some drawings at the Bigfoot Museum where people have eyewitness encounters and they have the really long finger drawings. In fact, I saw their fingers on our window one night. I'll tell you about that. But anyway, so it walked over to two. I'm sitting there watching the Bigfoot, and Paul's like, are you okay, honey? And I'm like, yes, honey. And, I didn't know how to tell him that I'm sitting here watching a cloaked Bigfoot walk in front of me. And I even turned around and shook my head. I thought, am I seeing things? And I looked back and I could still see it. And it walked over to these two parallel trees in our yard, and it started merging its body into the energy between the two parallel trees. And then only about an inch of it was sticking out, and then the rest of it went in, and I couldn't see it no more. And so I figured out the two parallel trees must be a portal,
Okay. Yeah. Right.
And I guess the energy gets trapped in between the two trees, and they can change the energy and use it. And my husband and I accidentally walked through a portal one time in our backyard too. And
oh, that's right.
Please tell us about that.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing, because like I said, I didn't know anything when they got here. I didn't know anybody who believed in Bigfoot. And Paul was watching Bigfoot shows and Bigfoot, reading Bigfoot books, but I was scared to do that. I was afraid if I read something scary, it would make me afraid of the Bigfoot. So my innocence was working for me,
That makes sense.
And I needed to keep my innocence while they were here, because they were in my yard. I could not avoid them. So, so I needed to not be scared. And so I did go through scared times though. But one day I just walked back. They had structures galore in our yard. And I walked underneath a broken tree. It was broke over. It was a big tree, broke over. So there was plenty of room to walk under it without, ducking your head. And there was a path. It was like they made paths and stuff. And so I just followed the path, and the path went under an arch next that was pinned. So I just walked under two structures. And then it still looked kind of like a little path to me, because I kept following it. And then all of a sudden I wound up in this circle, and the circle was all surrounded by hedges. And in the circle, there was all these circles in the ground, and they had teepees above each circle, and there was pine straw teepees above each circle. And it was like if you saw a spaceship landed, how there's circles all on the ground. It was like that. There were circles all on the ground with teepees of pine straw above each one. And it was really weird. So I moved over the pine straw one, and I stuck my hand down in one of the circles. So I'm a curious person. And I couldn't feel the bottom of the hole. It's like it was endless hole. And there were tons of them, at least a dozen going in a circle. And I never counted them, but it was a lot. And so it was just weird. So I left the circle, and I came back out, and I said, Paul, you got to see this place I just found. And so I tried to take him straight there, which would have been a shortcut, and I couldn't find it. And so it dawned on me, okay, maybe I have to walk under the Bigfoot structures to find the place. So
Mhm.
I took them underneath the broken tree and underneath the arch, and sure enough, we winded up in the circle with all the circle with all the circles that had pine straw teepees.
Mhm.
And there wasn't really another way to exit. You had to go in and out the same way unless you wanted to bush hog through the bushes. So it kind of kept us safe like that. And but we couldn't find it ever unless we went underneath those structures to get there. So it was like the structures were changing our energy. And I don't know if our neighbors could even see us when we were back there because I think
Yeah.
we entered a different dimension because you couldn't see the hedges and all that stuff unless you went under the structures and wound up in there.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's awesome.
Wow. That is crazy. Well, I'm glad
Uh-huh.
you made it back.
Yeah, it's
Or
funny
did you?
because right, you're here. Ginger's house is in a subdivision
Yes, in
in
the middle of a subdivision, which makes
yeah,
it
like
even crazier.
outside of Atlanta.
Yeah,
Wow.
And
yeah.
I
Yeah,
Just
Sam
lived
and I, we've had that conversation before about
yeah,
like when you used to live outside of Atlanta, right,
yeah. I
Sam?
lived like 15 minutes south of where Ginger lives. So
Oh,
where I
okay. Yeah,
lived was about
in the suburbs
that's why we would get together all the time. So we live
yeah,
nearby.
yeah,
okay,
Mhm.
makes sense.
yeah.
And they're
So
just
I
out
lived in
there
a
hanging out
subdivision
with
too.
Yeah, hanging out here.
And it's because when I think back, it it's it's so wild when I think about it now because my house was the last house in a cul-de-sac, right? So I had woods next to me. I had there was one house behind us that had like a 5 acre lot, and those people didn't live in that. They lived there for like a year, and then nobody lived in that house after that. And we always wondered why, because there was somebody that lived there for a while, and then nobody. We just didn't see cars. So my son and I walked over to that house one day and just kind of peeked in the windows because there hadn't been anyone back there for like a year or two, and the house was still full of furniture. There was stuff everywhere. It was like someone just
weird.
left
Hmm.
and didn't bother selling the house or anything. We always wondered about that, but that was also the area that the Sasquatch people would come in from to come to our house was through that. So I don't know if people lived there, got spooked, and just left.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I lived in the subdivision. Ginger does too. But I remembered once I was in the backyard with my oldest son, and he was probably like 2 or 3 at the time, and we did our first camp out, because he was so young. So we just set up a tent in the backyard, and we had a big fence around our yard and everything, so we were, safe. And so we just camped under the oak trees in the backyard. And I remember in the middle of the night, somebody walking through the woods on the other side of our fence. And I remember thinking, like, why the hell is someone walking through the woods in the middle of the night?
Y'all had a couple encounters in your yard, didn't you?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
Especially, well, but this was before I even knew about Sasquatch
Okay.
people, right? So Dublin was, so this would have been like 2010, right around the time where it started to kind of set into my head. And I remember being like, wow, that's weird. And then I would go in the backyard sometimes at night and I would hear footsteps in the woods between like my street and the next street over in the subdivision. And I was like, oh, that must be deer. And then, sometimes I'd look back there and see, eyes coming back. And I was like, oh, there's like a whole lot of deer or coyotes back there. Anyways, but now that I think about it, I was like, and then, Ginger, I was like, man, and as it progressed, I would see structures everywhere, like driving around in that area. You'd see them
Yeah,
in all the neighborhoods,
everywhere. They used to be
everywhere.
everywhere out here, everywhere. I showed you some pictures of the structures. They're not hard to
Yes.
find good structures around here. It's not hard,
Yeah,
you
Wow.
know?
Yeah, those
and
are
there's no snow
intense.
there,
I'll
so
I'll
it's
put
not
some up.
snowfall. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh no, it's
Sam said there's good structures all over the place around here, especially back then. When Sam was here, was a really magical time around here. There was a lot of people having encounters. Like,
Yeah,
I went to the BFRO site to talk about our sighting and admit it and submit it. And when I looked, our county at the time had the most sightings in all of Georgia,
yeah,
and all the sightings were on the streets right around us.
right.
wow.
And so,
Wow.
yeah, so I was probably the same Bigfoot visiting people right
It's the
around
sa-
us.
it's the same groups. There's
Right.
at least two groups, right? There's the one group down where we used to go camp out, and then there's another group that was up near you guys and where we lived. And so I think those two groups, I started to figure out the way that they would move through the areas towards the end of me
To
living there, right?
figure it out because
Yeah.
everything has power lines connected to
Yes.
it.
Yep. Yeah. So they would walk on
Every
the power
single one of
lines.
our places.
Yep. the power line right of ways and the
It's
rivers
got
and creeks
chills.
is how they would
And
move
rivers
through
and
areas.
creeks. Well,
Yep.
even a man followed the rivers and creeks and
Right.
Indians. So, but yeah, they definitely follow the rivers and creeks and power lines. Every
lines.
single one of our places, Clinton, McIntosh, my Hootie's place,
Yep.
all of them have a power line running nearby. Have a thing of
Yep.
power lines where it's all mowed down and the deer go to graze under it.
Yep.
But I don't
Yeah.
I think it's more than just the deer graze. It's right there that attracts them. I think it has something to do with the energy.
It's the energy, and it's really easy for them to move,
To
right?
travel because
cleared.
it's all mowed down below the
Yeah.
power lines, right?
Yep.
You know how there's like areas of power lines and they mow it down around them,
Yep.
and so the Bigfoot can move through there easily and quickly, right?
And it's easy to navigate, right? So they can just
Right.
go. You go from one to the next
Right.
crossing or whatever it is, and you know the streets. So like
Right.
it's super easy to navigate your way around there. And so when I first started investigating around there and found like my spots, I was working at this shop, and I would tell the guys there, you know, I'd be like, I don't know. This is right when it started, so I wasn't even sure what I was dealing with at first. And I was telling them all the stuff because I would leave work and I would just go straight to this nature preserve where I was having my interactions, and I would go there every day after work.
Mhm.
And I was telling them the stuff that was going on, and then they were kind of like, okay, whatever, you know, they weren't really like buying it at first. Well, I don't think I've told you about this, Ginger. I might have, but I can't remember. So a couple years ago, I think this was 2019. This was like right before the pandemic. One of the guys I worked with met a girl, and he moved in with her and her mom, I think, out near Dallas, Georgia. Okay. And he was staying with her at her mom's house. One night he called me and he was like, dude, I gotta tell you, I gotta apologize to you because I didn't believe you. And I was like, what's up? And he was like, I was at I don't remember her name. He's like, I was at her
That's by
house.
our house, Dallas, Georgia. That he's
Yeah,
talking about.
so Ginger lives in Dallas or outside of Dallas. And so he was like, I was at her house and I was in the back deck smoking a cigarette one night, and he was like, and something walked up through the woods right to the back of the yard and stayed in the trees, but it just started breathing really heavy at me, and it freaked me out. And I walked back in the house, and he was like, I thought you were full of shit. Sorry. But he was
Oh,
like,
no, it's fine.
It's an active area.
it is. And I was like, I was just like,
Mhm.
no, I get it. It's something you don't expect, but they are
Mhm.
all over that area, man.
Yeah, they're just all over the area. It's just the way it is here. You can go to any park that has a good amount of woods, and you're most likely going to have an encounter.
Yeah.
You know, every park I've been to around here, I've had an encounter at.
Huh. That's so interesting. Yeah, I've always wondered what the connection is with the power lines. I myself, like where I live, it's very rural and there's tons of woods everywhere. And so it takes 20 odd minutes to get to the next town from me. And every time I see power, I'm always attracted to the power lines. I'm always like, oh, I bet there's something there. Like it's always in the back of my mind. It's like a reflex or something like, oh, I bet there's something there. And I've always wondered. So
do you have a wildlife refuge or park that's near some power lines? Go walking in there for an encounter.
okay.
Yeah.
I will for
Yeah.
sure.
But if you do a
it
night
happens
walk,
here too. I mean, it's the same thing here too. Places, here, there's a place that is very well known in this area for encounters, has a lot of cool stories. It's a very popular place. And I just recently learned that there's huge power line
power
clearing
line,
out there.
right? So, see, I think you and I caught on to something, Sam, that other people haven't caught on to yet.
Yeah.
I wonder, do they use the energy? Maybe
I wonder.
They must.
Yeah.
Well,
I think there has
how
to be
could
something
you
to do with
not?
that too.
I mean, even
Yeah.
if you're anywhere near a bunch of power lines, you're going to absorb the energy without trying.
Yeah.
Try it.
And you can hear it
Yeah.
while you're standing
Mhm.
under them. It just crackles
Oh, yeah,
the
they
whole time
hum.
you're under it.
Yeah. So weird. Yeah. So for me, this thing that happened to me today was so, I don't know, it's so weird, and I feel like it hasn't really sunk in yet. I've never seen a structure before. That was the first one.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and like I said, I was talking to Barb Shoup last week, and in our conversation, I said, I've never seen a structure before. I've seen some glyphs, and they leave me stuff, but I've never seen a structure. And then
That was a good first one.
yeah, and last night I was out there, probably about midnight, and I was stargazing, and then all of a sudden I heard a really, really loud stick snap, and I've never heard that before. I've never heard it, and I was like, oh, is that my buddies? Is that them? And I could feel the energy was like kind of changing, and like my head was getting all tingly and stuff. And I was like, okay, I gotta go, guys. I'll see you later. And then I went out to the woods today, and there's the structure. So I was just like, wow, this is intense. So yeah, it's, man, they're awesome. I love them.
They heard
Yeah,
you.
they definitely heard me for sure. Where are you going, Ginger?
I was seeing Paul was up here. I was going to let him say hi to Sam. And
oh yeah,
Paul's up here. Oh, he come out, say hi to Sam.
He's like, I'm in the bathroom.
Yeah, that got recorded. He's like, great.
Yeah, tell the story about the hand that you saw.
Oh, okay. I went out on the porch one night, and I hear this real light tapping, just barely tap, tap, tap. And then I hear it again. That's strange. And the Biggies were doing a lot of stuff in our yard, so I turned around to see what it was. And Paul was sitting right here in the bedroom. In fact, I'll show you what it looks like. You can get a view of it. See, here's his bed with a window.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sitting right there. And the light was coming through because the light was on like it is now. And I could see this hand on the window when I looked at him. You could see like just right below the wrist and up. That's the only thing the light lit up. But the light coming out of the window was lighting up the whole hand. And the hand took up a huge amount of the window because the palm of the hand was huge. But the fingers were the really weird part. They were super skinny and bony looking, and they were extremely long. So it was really, really, really creepy looking.
Oh my gosh.
And in fact, there's a skeleton hand of what they think, I guess, is a Bigfoot at the Bigfoot Museum in Georgia. And it's an excellent replica of what we saw. I mean, it was the creepiest looking thing ever. I'm sorry, Biggies, but it was creepy. And I know they can hear what I'm saying. But so I came walking inside because that was enough of that for me. And I walked past Paul's bedroom and I didn't say anything because I wanted to see if he had heard the tapping on the window. And he said, honey, were you tapping on my window? And I said, no, honey, I can't reach the window. Once again, I'm short. And the window's probably 9 feet or 10 feet up in the air off the ground because we have a basement below. So I can't reach that window. And I said, no, honey, I can't reach it. But I saw who was tapping on your window. And so that's when I saw that. That's when I saw a really, really good glance of the hand. Hey, yeah. Paul, this is Paul. That's all.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Sam.
What's up, bro?
Hey, nice to meet you.
I've been mentioning you a bunch.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Good to see you, Sam.
Good to see you too, man. Good to see you.
His first sighting was in our yard. It was a really wild sighting too.
Oh, you want to tell us about it, Paul?
Can you tell about Paul?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right.
I put him on the spot, huh?
Yeah, she did.
He's in the hot seat.
So I'm just gonna get my glasses on. So I was in my backyard with a friend, and we were talking, and we were sitting in a bench, and our backyard is wooded, and we were just talking, and it was a friend of Ginger's, and we kept hearing, we heard like a twig snap or something like that, and we just kept talking, and then we heard another one, and it got louder, and we kind of blew it off again, kind of looked at each other. Well, that's kind of weird because we didn't see anything, and then it happened again, and it was closer, and it was louder, and it was so loud, we both got up. And I walked over by a tree and I looked up. My backyard goes kind of uphill. And this was at night. And there was ambient light back in the neighborhood. And I saw an outline of a figure there. And she saw it too. And so I'm looking at it. And I don't know why, but I just looked at it and it was real tall. And it was skinnier than I thought what a Bigfoot would be, but I couldn't see really good details, but I saw they had broad shoulders. And I just looked at it and I said, well, hello. I said, it's nice to meet you. I'm glad you showed up. I said, we honor and respect you. Can you please come down? Because, we'd love to meet you. And to my shock, it took like 2 or 3 steps towards us coming down the hill. Yeah, very slow steps, like guarded steps. And I'm like, thank you, thank you. And I said that again. I said, honor and respect you. I said, I really would like to.
Out.
Yeah, and that's coming. And so I said it again, and it took like a couple more steps. And the third time I did that, I said pretty much the same thing. I was getting excited. I never was scared now, but my heart was going, my adrenaline was going. I was like, really wanting to meet this thing, right? But for some reason, I was not scared at all. And when I said that again, he took more steps, and now he or she is getting very close. And her friend squeezed my arm and said, "Okay, that's enough. Let's go," or something like that, right? Well, no sooner than she said that, he or she disappeared behind the big pine tree in our backyard, because at this point it's probably 20 feet from us, maybe
Oh,
a little less than that. But it's dark, right? So I can't make it out real good, and I can't really explain that. But
Yeah.
And so when she said that, it disappeared behind a tree, and Ginger appeared. And so right away, Susie goes, "Oh, it was Ginger," right? Well, I knew better. She was trying to talk herself out of it already, right? But
yeah.
but Ginger appeared at about the same time that it disappeared. And what Ginger was doing, she was over there because she used to go out all the time out in the woods and just sit there. And I think she's told you about some of her experiences. And she went out there while we were talking, and she wanted us to have an experience, right? And she's talking to the Bigfoot. So I don't know if she made that one appear or what, or I really don't know. But it sure appeared, and I saw it, and it came down the hill and it walked towards us. And I remember being very angry, kind of angry inside after that, because I'm thinking I'm fixing to meet a Bigfoot, right? Because it was coming. But the grace of these things, they are so grace and thoughtful. As soon as there was any amount of fear, it disappeared and made Ginger appear kind of at the same time, because she was on the other side. She couldn't see I don't think she saw it, did you? I don't think you saw it.
I couldn't see the Bigfoot from my view, but I could see Paul and my friend Susie. And I could see Susie looking back at it and getting real scared and being like, oh my God, she was like that with her hands and everything. And I saw Paul looking back, and he was going, come. And he was saying, come. So I knew a Bigfoot was approaching them because of what I was seeing them do.
Right.
I was at the side of the yard, and they were in the middle of the yard, and I was in the woods, and they were in the woods too. Even though we're in a subdivision, the back of our yard is wooded. And I was at the side begging the Biggies to go give them a sighting. And when I saw they were having an encounter, I stood up and jumped up because Susie looked frightened to death. She just kept, she was frightened. She just kept going like this, and she was so scared. And she was like, so I jumped up to run and get between Susie and the Bigfoot to protect Susie. Not from the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot wasn't going to hurt Susie, but just to make Susie feel more protected. Right. And so when I walked towards them, the Bigfoot used me. And when I got to the tree, it went behind the tree, and I walked out from the tree. So it was a perfect way for Susie's mind to justify that it was me. Yeah. But then later, months later, she told one of my friends she had saw Bigfoot. So her mind did wrap back around it again.
Right.
Now, Susie was a medium, and Susie saw dead people, but this Bigfoot scared her for some reason.
Yeah. We thought she'd be able to handle being a medium, but I guess that's dead spirit. A dead person is different than a Bigfoot, so
And I'll tell you guys this. Her and I were out there talking because my mother got killed when I was 17 years old, and I wanted to. I knew Susie did that, and I wanted her to come over and see if my mother had anything that she wanted to say to me, or she could contact her or whatever, because some things were going on at the time. And so while Susie was doing that with me, that's when all the beginning of the story started happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
they're really attracted to that energy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
that's exactly what he was hoping.
Whether she initiated it or Ginger initiated talking to him or whatever, I'm just glad it happened. I wish it would happen again, because it seemed like it was less than 20 feet from me and getting ready to, I don't know what, maybe I could have met a Bigfoot, but
He was upset because Susie was scared and he was afraid that's what
Yeah.
made it turn around and stop going towards them. And it probably was because I jumped up and went running to stand between them, you know.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
but you know, who knows? Susie couldn't handle it. She couldn't handle it, you know. So and that's the thing. Some people want to try to make people believe, but some people's mind just can't handle it. So I don't think we should try to make people believe. Just you know, if they want to
Right.
believe, then you know.
and I could understand, why it disappeared like that, and I can understand she got scared, but I was kind of being selfish. I wanted to see it because
Yeah.
I haven't had, you've heard of some other things that happened with Sam. We used to go out with Sam a lot, but besides that, to have that happen, that was quite special, and I haven't quite,
Absolutely.
yeah. So thank you for letting me tell that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
no,
That
I'm
was so great. What a cool story.
The last time we went to Macintosh, Sam, Paul, and I had, well, not last time, the time before last. It was this year, though. We had an encounter with the cloaked one there.
Oh, wow.
Another cloaked Bigfoot encounter. We thought the night was over. We were sitting down the trail, same spot we sat at, where the three of us sat. The Bigfoot, Paul and I were sitting down that trail, and just earlier this year. And we started to leave, and you know how sometimes they get you when you leave.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we're walking down the trail, and I hear one coming down the hill on the left when we're going back to the car, and I hear the bipedal steps, and I said, "A Bigfoot's coming," and then I hear it cross the trail right in front of me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it, but you could clearly hear the boom, boom, the bipedal steps. We could hear it big time.
Yeah.
And then it got right off the trail and stood right in the leaves, right next to the trail. I mean, in arm's distance of Paul and I, we could have reached out and touched it. We didn't think to do that, but it was standing right in front of us, and we could not see it at all, but you could hear it clearly. I even started to scry at its feet because you could tell where its feet were. I mean, you could hear easily where it stepped. So I started scrying at the leaves and the feet to see if that way I could see it if I was, scrying. And it's like the Bigfoot knew, and it jumped back real quick further back into the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That happened a lot there. That happened the first time I ever went there. Jason Weaver and I were walking. We did our night walk with everybody, right? And we walked back to this area. Jason and I were in the very front, and it was kind of where, you walk down the trail, and then it will kind of get to a point where we used to sit a lot, and then at that place, it'll kind of go to the left, and it'll go towards the creek. Jason and I had just turned to the left, and we were standing.
Yeah.
Okay, we were standing at that place, and one came walking down the hill, and it walked right in front of us, and we couldn't see it.
That's exactly it.
And it was
That's
like,
exactly what it did.
yeah, and it
Exactly.
was really dark. It stopped right in front of us, and Jason,
Yep.
I don't remember if he said like hello or hi or anything like that, but I remember it walked away, and he was just like, "What do you think that was?" And I was like, "Dude, you know what that was."
Nothing else is usually invisible that makes a loud bipedal sound.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, there was another time, that hill, like we called it Keats Trail, and it was the same trail we were on when Ginger and you and I saw the eye shine.
Yeah.
But if you start at the road and then you got a little bridge, you crossed over a little creek, and then you went up a hill. Right. We were sitting on that hill one night, one of Ginger's friends, and she wanted to see a fairy, right? There was a bunch of fairies out. You know how it lights up in there. And we're sitting there in lawn chairs at the top of the hill. Ginger's friend is all the way to the right. Ginger's next to her, and I'm on the left. And just sitting there, and all of a sudden something hit the back of my chair, like something ran into the back of the chair and physically knocked me up.
Yeah, Paul jumped up.
And I jumped up, and it got Ginger jumped up at the same time because it barely got her, but it got me good. And you could hear it, but it was silent. You could hear it running away. I couldn't hear it coming, but it hit my chair enough to jolt me out of it a little bit. And then I heard it take off and never saw anything.
I think they like to mess with the men more if there's a man walking with a woman. Every time they mess with the men more than they mess with me.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And that area that you're talking about, that spot is the first time I ever saw eye shine with Arla.
Yeah.
Arla and I were there, and we saw one.
It's a magical trail.
Yeah, it really is. And then, we saw one do strobe light eye shine. It was looking at us, and Arla was talking to it.
That was on that trail.
And it did like this strobe light but it did these bars, like these
Mhm.
like horizontal lines, and it was like
Mhm.
and it was so crazy. That was the
Oh
first
my
Sasquatch
God.
I ever saw, and I was like, what did I just see? Like that's
What the hell was that?
yeah, what was
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
We saw a
Wow.
portal up in there.
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember
yeah,
you
we
guys
Did
saw
telling
that.
me
Ginger
about
tell
that.
you about that story?
No, I told him about the portal we walked through in the backyard, though.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
you guys talking about that story, but yeah, I mean that's a great story. You
That
should
was
tell it.
Yeah,
super
tell
weird,
it.
man. Huh?
Yeah, you
Let's
should
hear
tell
it.
it because it was in the
Okay.
same area, right?
Yeah. Well,
That
what it
back
was,
trail.
it was right around Christmas time, and we took a couple friends out at night for a night walk, and we were way back there saying we had only planned on going a short ways, and somehow we got turned around back in there, which happens a lot, and we were trying to find our way out, and I was in front. Were you behind me, or were you towards the back? I think Donna was behind me, and
You were in the front. Donna was behind you. I was behind Donna, and Mike was in the
Mike
back.
was in. Okay, so I crest this hill, right, and I'm in front and getting ready to go downhill, and I'm looking off, and we're way back there, and we're looking off, and it's super cold, man. And I saw what I thought was a campfire, and
Okay.
and I remember thinking right away, like, what's somebody camping way out here for when they got the whole area up by the river and all that?
Right.
And we kept looking at it, and then we heard a Bigfoot. We heard one walked right in front of me. I never saw it. Ginger heard it big time. My hearing, you know how my hearing is. So, but I could hear it, but she could hear it really good. So one went in front of us, and then like some were coming around us towards the back, like they're flanking us.
Right.
And I kept looking. We kept looking at this fire. No, it's not looking like a fire. It's looking
It was
all
up in the
orange,
air.
and it was up in the air. It wasn't on the ground. It was up in the air, and it was
Yeah.
all like orange and purple.
And it had lights above it.
Yeah, and it had lights above it. It was super weird, man. So I'm like kind of wanting to go check it out, right? But this Bigfoot or whatever it was
He stood in front of me and Mike.
didn't want us to. I
we
think
were
it was protecting
we
us.
were at the back of the
Oh,
line,
wow.
and my friend Mike wanted to approach the what we thought was a portal, and
Right.
I did too.
the Bigfoot walked in front of Paul, then it walked across Donna in front of her, then it walked and stood in front of me and Mike.
Yeah.
And blocked us from going further. And I said, Mike, I think there's a Bigfoot standing in front of you, and I don't think it wants you to go forward. And Mike said, I think you're right.
It didn't.
And because
Wow.
it was a big one, you could hear its bipedal steps loud and clear. None of
Yeah.
us had a flashlight on. We were just in the pitch dark,
Mhm.
but you could hear its bipedal steps loud and clear. But now the only reason we think it's a portal is because I posted it in the West Georgia Bigfoot group, or no, the laid back group that Sam and all of us were in after it happened. And Doug Blanks responded and said that 3 years before, somebody had been on that same trail and saw the exact same
You
thing.
remember him, Sam Doug Blanks?
Yeah, I
And
remember
he
Doug.
saw the exact same thing now on the exact same trail, which is really crazy because we didn't know these people and they saw the exact same thing we did. And these
Right.
people said it was a portal. I think they saw something come through it or something, but they explained it. They explained it just like we did, the fire in the air with the lights above it that look like eye shine. I
Yeah.
think it was red eyes though, wasn't it? It was red eyes above the fire.
It was something.
And they called them gatekeepers to the portal. And I don't know if
Right.
any of that's true because we can make up a lot of things in our head. But what we saw was just lights above the fire, and the fire was up in the air. And what we do know for sure is a Bigfoot walked in front of us and blocked us.
And here's the
Yeah.
other thing. That was supposed to be a quick walk, and we were out there
Oh,
for
yeah.
more than 3
We got
hours,
lost.
and we were going around kind of in circles.
And we knew those trails. The Sam knows we've been on them a million times. And we kept going in circles and circles. I couldn't walk anymore. I was like, okay, we have got to find
And
a
it was
way
freezing
out.
cold.
Yeah, and it was
That's not-
freezing cold, and none of us could figure it out. We just kept walking in circles, and so we finally pulled up one internet signal, and we pulled up the map, and Paul got his bearings from that, and got us out of there. But it was like that. The encounter we had turned us around.
Mm.
And so never go down a night walk at night without knowing the trail really good first, because it is so
Right.
easy to get turned around after an encounter. And
Mhm.
because we just couldn't find our way out. I mean, I could barely walk anymore. I was like, we've got to find our way out.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
my
These
area.
gosh.
people, they never knew about they had an open mind, but they
Mhm.
never did what we do, and they were kind of freaked out.
They were, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they even agreed it was a Bigfoot because they clearly heard it walk by them, but they couldn't see it. And so because Bigfoot, well, they're big, they make a loud noise walking, but but they even believed in it, and they didn't believe in Bigfoot before that, like Paul said. Yeah, that's the reason we called it a portal. Whether it really was for sure, I do not know.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that
Who
place will
knows
make
what
you
it
believe it
really
quick.
was.
Now I
What
know
were
the
you
one
saying,
Paul
Sam?
and I went through was because we kept winding up in a place that wasn't there unless you went under the structures.
Right. Right.
So
Wow.
There's a lot.
Well,
yeah.
I don't.
Well, that's why
Where do you
Sam.
go from there?
That's why Sam suggested me.
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
we were having that activity,
Oh my
when-
gosh.
Lot
when we were
of
having
stories.
all that activity in 2014,
Mhm.
they were doing all kinds of things.
All kinds of
We got a
things.
concrete bird bath in the,
Oh,
in the
yeah.
backyard,
Oh yeah.
and the thing is heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I come out. This happened 2 separate times. The top of the concrete bird bath was off and turned upside down, laying next to the bird bath.
Oh yeah, they love doing that because they did that more than twice.
I found prints back there, huge
Oh, all kinds of
prints.
stuff. We did all kinds of stuff going on. Like I said, the rock throwing was like nightly almost for months. And if they didn't throw, I'd be hurt. I called him Rocky because there was this little juvenile that was hanging up in a tree. And as soon as I stepped out on the porch, ping, and it would ping with these little metal strips on the porch. Such accurate throws. And it never did at our house or anything. And I'd be so upset if it didn't throw a rock at me right away. And Paul would walk out there and go, Rocky, you didn't throw a rock. And then all of a sudden it hit ding. And
Tell them how they shut the dog up.
oh yeah, we had I think the neighbor 2 doors down knew he was having Bigfoot encounters too, but
Or something.
he was or something. He knew something was going on paranormal, but he didn't know if it was friendly or not. So he built a pit bull fence up against the wood line and put a pit bull in it. And that was one way we knew the Biggies were coming to our yard, because we would hear the pit bull start barking, and then we'd hear bang, bang on the bull pen, and the pit bull would get quiet. And next thing you know, we had encounters in our yard 1 minute later. And so we figured out the Biggies were banging on the pen, making the dog quiet. And one time the dog was barking and the Biggies were around, and one of our one said, Biggies, can you bang on the pen and make the dog quiet? Sure enough, instantly we hear bang, bang, and the dog got quiet. I don't think it ever hurt the dog or hit the dog. It was just banging on the pen.
Yeah.
But that owner used to come out on his deck with a huge infrared light.
Okay.
So
Shining it everywhere.
so he knew something was out there,
Right.
you know.
Whoa.
And we used to catch him watching Paul and I with binoculars because we were out walking in our woods at night all the time, you know.
Yeah. It's so funny because
Jeez.
I have so many similar stories to you guys, and
Because you live near
Like,
us.
yeah, but it's just crazy because the behaviors are so similar.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like they were all part of the same tribe or
It
something.
sounds like we were dealing with like the same exact
Same
one.
biggest.
they're pranks.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they were. Maybe that's why we got connected to you.
Right. Because I had an incident, and I won't tell the story now because it's kind of long, but I had an incident with a neighbor's dog too, and they helped me out with that neighbor's dog.
See?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that story.
But we
You
live so
can tell it
close,
if you
man.
want
For
to.
the Biggies, it was probably a 5-minute jump through a portal, you know. But
Right. It's so funny because I remember you guys telling me the hand story. I think you told me the hand story while you were at my house, and I was telling you guys about the fingers that was tapping on our windows, and you were like, "Oh, I've seen it," and I was like,
Yeah.
And listening to you tell it just brings back that first couple nights when we started hearing the tapping on our windows.
they're doing the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably was. I mean, it's probably the same Biggies and stuff. Probably the same. The neighbors were probably seeing the same ones we were seeing. Probably the nights they weren't here, they were at our neighbors or your house or somebody.
Oh, Sam, that was a great interview you did with
Oh yeah.
Classic Beauty.
Yes, good
And
job.
Thank you for
Oh.
mentioning our story.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I miss
Thank
you,
you.
man.
Aw.
I
I
miss
miss
y'all
our
too.
walks and stuff.
Yeah.
I know. Me too. I really do. I hope you guys get to come out here soon.
Well, we're
Yeah, we
gonna try.
tried, and I got shingles. It kind of messed
I
that up.
know.
So we're gonna try again though, and get out there to Washington again.
That trip that you guys were going to come out to the Blues a couple years ago,
Mhm.
that was the trip that I saw that big one.
Oh wow!
Isn't that where you saw the cloaked one too? Or the one after
so
that?
That was a month before that. That was
Okay.
in Mount Rainier. That one, that was that was a trippy year. Yeah, so I love you guys, all of you guys, Gina, you too. Like,
Well, I think
I'd
I'm
love
gonna
for
come
everyone
out
to come
there
out
in
here.
October.
Okay.
That's what I'm
Where are you
thinking.
from, Gina?
I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, up by
Oh, okay.
Lake Superior. So,
Oh, we have
yeah.
we all three have two good friends up there, Bill and Lori. They shared encounters with Sam, Paul, and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they live in the UP?
They live in Michigan.
They
No,
live
don't
somewhere
live in
near. I don't know if how
Our
far up
neighbors
there.
behind us are from the UP right
Oh,
now.
okay. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know anyone up here that has any Sasquatch experience that has had an encounter. So I kind of feel a little isolated, but I'm so glad that I've been meeting people like you guys online, because it's some weird stuff to experience on your own,
Absolutely.
So it's really cool to get to know you guys.
Well, if you ever need someone to talk to about it, feel free, because we've seen all kinds of crazy stuff. So
Yeah, obviously.
I would like to check the UP out too, because I heard it's beautiful.
Yeah, you should. It's gorgeous up here. I love it. It's very in the summertime, it's usually around 75, 80. Sometimes it gets up to 90, but it's like pretty mild, and the lake's gorgeous. Lots of woods. I'm sure you guys would make some pretty cool forest friends.
Oh yes, sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
We might have to go to Michigan with some other friends too.
Oh yeah. Do you ever go out to the Blues?
No,
Maybe
that sounds nice though.
Yeah.
Sounds
I know
wonderful.
I haven't been either, so I'm excited to go.
Oh, it sounds great.
Everybody.
I just went camping at Barb Shoop's house before, and then after that we left and we went camping in some woods nearby. Maybe they're called Blues. I don't know. And then Brian and Susan met us there.
Yep.
And it was Arla and Jonathan and Gail and Kay and Brian and Susan met us there. I don't remember what those woods are called. And
so that area is where I saw the cloaked one, the one that
okay.
that uncloaked and then recloaked while he was walking.
That looks like a good area for that to happen.
That's where I camped there again this past June. I love that area.
I do too.
Is that the Blues?
No, the Blues are Eastern Washington, kind of near Idaho.
Okay.
It's like Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon. So kind of where Idaho, Oregon, and Washington meet. It's like in that area.
Oh, Susan and I had a UFO encounter around those woods that night. Shared one.
You guys were that was at Mount Adams, right? I think.
Yeah, we went outside the park and we were trying to find the Assetti Ranch. Susan thought she might know where it was, but we couldn't find it, and it was like after midnight. So I just pulled over on the side of the road because we thought we were nearby it, and we just faced the mountain. And we sat there for about 20 minutes, and we about gave up, and I started to drive away, and we saw a UFO come out of the mountain just as I started to drive away. So I backed back up, for us to watch it. And it landed back, it came off the mountain, and then it landed back on the ledge of the mountain, and we just watched the lights go around and around in different patterns, and for a while until it stopped.
That is so cool. I've wanted to go to the Assetti Ranch for a while now.
That'd be cool.
I think you could probably just go, like you said, anywhere nearby.
Yeah, we went near it, and then we didn't have to do participate in everything else.
True.
But yeah, if you guys come out here, we should go to that area too, because that area is really cool.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's plan to go out there and go camp around the Assetti Ranch area.
I would love
That's where Sam saw the cloaked one.
I've been to Seattle on a business trip in 2010, and it was business, and I would love to go back.
We'll plan it. Maybe next year, Sam will plan that.
Yeah. All right.
Start planning.
Awesome. Well, I guess we should let you guys go, huh? It's pretty late for you.
Nice to meet you, Gina. Good seeing you, Sam.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Cool.
It's our weekend night, so we're good.
Awesome.
Sam, great seeing you.
Thanks for having me, Gina.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Have a good one.
Bye.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you.